Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for October 1st, 2021. I am Benji Fisher, moderating and sharing my screen. Also here are Aaron McHale, Antonia Gabor-Hotzi, and Paulo Henrique Cota-Starling. So we have a few issues left over from last week. I'm afraid I haven't updated the issue yet. But there are a few that Derek, DWW, asked us to look at a while ago. We haven't had a chance to look at them. And then there are a couple that Quiet One or Victoria has asked us to look at. And I think unless someone has another suggestion, let's start looking at those. And I think these are two different approaches to the same problem. So the first issue, for the sake of the recording, is 2301625, incorrect behavior for block page visibility. And the second one is 2451461, hide/show block page visibility, negate form element if page's form element is/is not empty. I think that one could use a better title. So the first one, incorrect behavior for block page visibility. Oh, and before I start, I should say the usual things. Feel free to jump in and interrupt me. I haven't had a chance to look at these, so this is new to me as well. And if you prefer to type rather than talk, I do have the chat window open, so I will read your comments into the record. So incorrect behavior for block page visibility. When leaving the listed pages text area empty in pages block visibility, the options show for the listed pages and hide for the listed pages do the exact opposite of what they claim. They work as though there were an entry star in the list, star meaning all. That is, show for listed pages will result in the block showing on all pages when the list is empty. Hide for the listed pages will result in the block showing nowhere when the list is empty. And for an empty list, show on the listed pages should not show the block anywhere, and hide on the listed pages should have the block show up on every page when the list is empty. So let me scroll down to the screenshots so we can see what they're talking about. I think I follow this. It's sort of a general behavior in Drupal that selecting nothing sometimes behaves the same as selecting everything. So here's a screenshot of a block visibility page. And we've left the text area empty. We have not listed any pages. If we do list some pages here, then it behaves reasonably. And the two options, show or hide, work as expected. And I'm not sure what the difference is in this screenshot. Maybe this is, oh, the description is longer. And it looks like it's just added a sentence at the end, leaving this blank will match all paths. So maybe that's the proposed resolution in this issue. Any questions before I go on? Would you like me to open a test site so we can see this live?
Is there it looks like there was quite a bit under the proposed resolution, or is it just the is that just different options there and like sort of different possible resolutions? Yes, possible
Yeah,
options are okay.
I was certainly planning to move on to that section of the issue, but I wanted
Okay.
to pause first, see if anyone wants clarification on what the problem is before we move on to the proposed resolution. Okay, so yes, it does look like there are several options in the proposed resolution, which means it needs an issue summary update. Because when it's at the needs review stage, you're supposed to have decided that. Option 1, make the options just work as advertised, i.e. an empty list will cause the exact opposite of entering a single asterisk for both options. Option 2, make it impossible to empty the list, defaulting to asterisk when left empty. This should probably be reported in a user message. 3, don't change anything except add a little explanation to the UI stating that leaving the list empty is equivalent to all. That seems to be from the screenshot what they've implemented. 4, uncheck show for the listed pages if pages text area is empty. And 5, add a new radio button option for show on all pages. Select this by default, hide the text area when it is selected, then validate that the box is not empty if either of the other two options are selected. See comment 19. So again, it seems that from the screenshots, it seems they've implemented the third option, which is also the smallest change. One consideration is that the default currently causes the block to show everywhere, which in itself is probably a good default. It's just that it is being achieved by combining show unlisted pages with an empty list, which at least caused me to expect me to select hide on the listed pages, expecting that to result in the block showing everywhere. Another consideration is to ensure that the descriptive text, not restricted / restricted to certain pages, in the pages tab is correct. I guess that means this little summary on the left, where it says pages not restricted. So deciding on a resolution is listed as one of the remaining tasks. But under user interface changes, the latest patch has a change to the description. That is option 3.
I have a couple of initial thoughts. If people don't mind me going first, otherwise someone else wants to go first.
Go ahead.
So my first thought is, if Benji, if you could go back to one of the screenshots, that would be helpful if you could. Yes, so looking at this, I think it is strange that the options are below the text field. So my first suggestion would be for us to swap the order of the sort of radio buttons in the text field, just as a general kind of improvement there. My second thought is that I think the fourth proposed option of having a third radio button that just says sort of show on all pages, and that is the default, I think that's potentially of all the options, because I could think of a sort of a more advanced kind of like solution here, but it's just going to be so technically kind of daunting to implement. That fourth option seems the easiest one, and I think that's a better paradigm for people to understand, or just leave it as default or select this third option, versus making sure that we have an asterisk in there, or people are putting an asterisk in there, because an asterisk in itself is maybe not always understood as to what that will mean. to people, especially people who are not familiar with sort of, various systems where an asterisk might be used to reference everything. Like that seems like a bit of a niche thing for some people, I guess. So I would be a fan of the fourth option of adding a third radio button there that just allows to say show on all pages. And then whether that then, I'm not sure if that should then hide the text area or not, but maybe it should. Maybe it would be better if it didn't. I'm not sure exactly there, but that's where I stand at the moment on this.
So 2 suggestions. One is to put the radio buttons before the text area, and second, you prefer the option to, what option was it? Add new radio button, option 5.
Oh, is that option 5? Sorry, I thought that was option 4. Yes. Yes, I think option 5 is the most desirable option, I guess, in that idea.
Oh. Okay. Remember, there's also an entirely separate issue with a different approach. And I failed to notice when Paolo mentioned in chat that 5 was the option we were talking about. So I do, by the way, have a live site here. So we don't have to rely just on screenshots. I have not applied the patch. And the other issue that addresses the same problem, again, it's 2451461. And the issue title is so confusing, I'm not going to bother rereading it. But let's see, the problem or motivation. Let me just skim it and see if it says anything new. Yeah, it really is the same problem. The proposed resolution. To remove this confusion, I suggested adding states to the negate form element to show hide when page's form element is not empty. So the user interface change is that the show hide blocks page visibility as a condition if paths are provided or not. So this, I guess, hides the radio buttons in the default state where no pages are listed. So the before screenshot is pretty much the same as what we've seen before. The after screenshot, in the default state where you haven't listed any pages, the radio buttons are hidden, and the after page screenshot, once you enter a page in the list, you have the 2 radio. So that's, in a sense, the opposite of the solution Aaron preferred, where the radio buttons are made more primary. This explicitly makes the radio buttons secondary. Any thoughts on this proposal?
I'm having a hard time deciding which one of those options is better, offers better usability, hiding the text area and showing only the radio buttons or hiding the radio buttons and showing only the text area until something or one of those inputs has been touched by the user. I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't like either somehow.
Yeah, this is a problem with sort of a widespread problem that you adopt some practice because it sort of seems simpler, even though it's not really consistent. And then as things become more complicated, you find yourself getting into trouble. And then the PHP language is like that. It adopts all sorts of convenient conventions that then, as things get more complicated, give us trouble. And this idea that not entering anything is the same as entering everything is convenient, but then gets confusing. So my preference is I don't like this second solution. And let me go to which tab do I have with the live page? Here we go. This is the live page. So suppose I'm new to Drupal. I don't know how this works. And I come to these pages and I don't see the two radio buttons. But I do see this list. So here I'm actually configuring the page title block, which I want to appear on almost every page on my site. But there are 3 pages where I need to hide it because whatever. And if I don't see these 2 radio buttons, I think, how am I going to do that? Do I have to list every page on my site? Do I have to, I see from the help text that I have this wildcard character, but even so, it's going to be a nuisance that I'm going to have to list every single page on the site. Because if these radio buttons are hidden, I don't know that I have the option to just hide it for the 3 pages where it needs to be hidden. So I think for discoverability, it's a really bad idea to have those 2 radio buttons hidden by default. Agree, disagree?
I would agree. I don't think it's a good idea to hide those.
Anyone else?
I agree too.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. I think there's also, and I'm by no means an expert on this, but if I remember correctly, maybe some accessibility issues with sort of dynamically hiding and showing the radio buttons in this way. So I would also I would also agree with what you said, but I think to go back to something I said earlier, I actually think if we introduced just generally that maybe these radio buttons would sit better if they were above the text area. And again, that would, if we decided to do that, then that would not work for that.
Yeah, as I said, when we started looking at that second issue, that proposal was pretty much the opposite of what you were suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've made some progress. We've ruled out one solution. So let's go back to the first issue. And I guess Aaron at least prefers the 5th option, adding a 3rd radio button and also putting the radio buttons before the text area. And let's see what this comment 19 is about. Would it be better to add a new radio button? Select this by default. Hide the text area when this is selected. And then add validation. Um, okay, so that's the comment where that option was first proposed. So we have at least one vote in favor of that option. The advantage of the current proposal is it's just changing the help text. It's not changing any behavior. There's no backwards compatibility issues. But it requires people to read the help text, which is usually not the best solution. Aaron votes in favor of option 5. And in addition, rearranging the form elements, which is, I would say pretty much required if you're going to hide the text area based on the radio buttons, then that pretty much forces or requires you to put the radio buttons first.
Yeah, and even just introducing option 5 without hiding it, it would make a lot more sense to have the radio buttons above, because if you selected the option that said, just show everywhere, it would be a little bit weird in terms of the sort of, logical order of things to then have a list of pages above that. I think I'm more okay with hiding the text box in this case, because if we move the radio buttons above the text box.
I think I agree with you. I think I like the option of the third radio button. I think that's really clear. I wonder when that radio button is selected, should we hide the text area or should we just disable it? Does that make a big difference?
I'd vote for disable.
Anyone else?
I think hiding is better than disabling, because at least if we disable it, there is, I believe that is also a sort of accessibility pitfall sometimes of something being disabled. And it's maybe in certain cases hard to know it's disabled. Again, not an expert here, so it'd be great to get some input from someone who knows more about the specifics of accessibility in these cases. But I would go for hiding it over disabling it, and for other reasons, that like if you're selecting the default option in this case, which would be to show on all pages, it just doesn't make sense to then have this text box here. And it's kind of it sort of becomes irrelevant at that point, and anything in that text box no longer has any value, no longer has any influence on the display, so it wouldn't make sense for it to be visible in the form, I guess.
Okay.
Those are some valid points regarding accessibility. Benji, can you scroll down to the latest comments, because it kind of looks like people have decided on option 3, but summary hasn't been updated, or have there already been efforts, invested in the form of a patch towards option 5?
So reading up from the bottom of the last 3 comments, 27, 28, 29, don't seem to talk about that. So 26 agrees with my point that the simplest fix is the help text, which is what's been implemented. I guess option 5 was introduced in comment 19. I don't see any attempts to implement it there. So we're halfway through the hour, and I think we can wrap up this issue. I think we have a consensus that we should close the other one, and request that that we go with option 5 on this issue, and including it would be nice to get an accessibility opinion, but probably hiding rather than disabling the text area when the new default option is selected, and putting the radio buttons before the text area. Am I missing anything?
No, I think that sounds accurate. I think the other more fundamental problem with that I think I mentioned with this sort of just adding help text is that we still have this weird situation where you could just put in asterisks in the in the box, and that is to effectively achieve the situation of showing on all pages, and that's a bit weird for I guess for people who don't understand how an asterisk would function or don't read the help text. That might seem a bit of an odd thing. So I think reducing, we help people to understand this easier without them having to understand what an asterisk does.
Okay. Then let's move on. So let's see. I didn't update the issue for today's meeting, but I did spend a little time a week ago. So again, these are the two issues we've just looked at that Quiet One requested. And I think we again have two competing issues for the same problem that Derek requested, and I forget who asked that we looked at this. New translations for moderated nodes are not created in the initial workflow state. So shall we look at that pair of issues or the one about translations? Hearing no preferences, I will open up these two competing issues and see what they're about. So the first one is 332796. So that makes it a very old issue from 2008. Add permissions to the update module to hide warnings. And the second one is 2059375. So pretty old, but not as old, from 2013. Update notification messages as an option in settings. So let's look at the current status of the older issue. Add permissions to hide warnings. Some users who have the authority to administer the site might overreact to the scary red messages that show up on the screen if they bump into the admin logs updates page or module listing page. This module adds permission to limit who can see the warnings, who can see the list of modules that need to be updated, and who can change the settings. It's designed to stop pesky inquiries from admins who might misinterpret the update status warnings as critical failures that must be attended to immediately. It says this module. I wonder if that's copied from some contrib module that introduces this. Alternative approaches. There are 3 different approaches to this problem to be discussed. Which one to use finally? Afterwards, both others should be closed as duplicate. So update notification messages as an option in settings. Is that the other one that Derek mentioned? Update, yes. And then two other alternatives. 3239970, show update notifications only with permissions, administer software updates. And 332796, the current issue. So this issue summary doesn't have a proposed resolution section, but I guess the title is pretty clear. We're adding a new permission. I guess there's this other related issue. It shows up in the sidebar where I guess it's automatically updated as being in the needs review status. Show update notifications only with permission, administer software updates. That's a very recently created issue, created yesterday. So just judging by the title, it seems like a duplicate of, it's adding a permit. Oh, maybe it's using an existing permission rather than adding a new permission. And this, so I guess going to the other issue, the one created in 2013, update notification messages as an option in settings. So I guess rather than adding a new permission, this one either lets you show them or not. At least that's what the title suggests. This is one settings that is really missing in Drupal, both 7 and 8. It was really annoying because almost every admin page has this update notification message. If you don't have the latest modules and you want to keep update module enabled because of Drush Up. And it shows a screenshot. Let's have a quick look at it. I think we've all seen this. It shows the error message. There are security updates available for one or more of your modules or themes, and so on and so forth. The goal of this issue is to hide this notification in update modules, setting pages, admin reports, update settings, and it shows a screenshot of this new option added to the settings form. Enable update module system notifications. So I guess first, do we understand the problem this is trying to solve? That there are too many warnings, it leads to alarm fatigue, and the warnings may be seen by people who don't have permission to do anything about them. I don't hear any questions about that, so I guess, oh, two people have unmuted. Antonia, what do you want to say?
I think it makes sense to restrict this based on the user role, because if you don't have permissions to update modules or anything on the site, then why even bother showing the message to the person? Otherwise, you know, on second thought, it might be useful to get notified even if you are not the developer of the site, because then you can notify the developer of the site. So I'm kind of, you know, not really sure which approach is best for this issue. Hoping Aaron can
Well,
shed some light.
sure. I think so. The first thing that comes to mind here is just specifically with the issue you've got open on the screen about the sort of I don't it, so I don't really I don't feel warmly to the idea about just adding a configuration option to just hide update warnings. Like I don't think that is necessarily a great idea. But I can see, I think all of these issues are rooted in the same kind of problem that, and I've seen this problem far too many times, and it's usually it is the constant red message that comes up about, you know, that we see right there about you've got software, you've got updates, whatever. If you can do something about it, and you choose not to, eventually it just becomes like visual noise, and you start to ignore that it exists, which I am guilty of. And if you can't do anything about it and you see it, then as Antonio said, I think you know you probably can let someone know, but it could quite quickly become visual noise. Of all those sort of effectively few issues we just looked at, the one I'm most interested in, it really is the one that was opened yesterday, because there is a lot of buzz going on around, well, not just buzz, there's a lot of activity and work going on around, you know, updates and automatic updates and things. So I wonder if we have moved on since these older issues were created in terms of how we think about updates and how they're managed. You know, so I don't have any specific recommendations of things that could be done for these issues right now, but I'm just interested in where the most recent issue would go. I think that was, yeah, so is that administer software updates, is that a new permission that is going to be, because that would effectively solve one of the other issues we looked at, which was adding a permission to stop, you know, to only see those notifications. Yeah, adding the permission to hide the warnings, like that would, if done correctly, that would just mean this issue could be like closed as out of date or duplicate or something.
Right. So, so let me also mention, for the sake of the recording, that Offer Shal has joined us. Thank you. And let's see if I can find the right tab. I have a live site running. Here we go. So we can check the permissions page and see. So I'm guessing from the discussion that the update module already provides a permission.
There it was. Scroll a little bit up.
System module, maybe?
Yes. Administer software updates, the fourth one from the top.
Yes. So there is an existing permission, administer software updates. And so as I thought from the issue titles, the difference between these two issues is that the one opened yesterday ties it to an existing permission, and the older one recommends adding a new permission. So I kind of agree with Antonia's second thought, that even if you can't do anything about it, you may know someone who can. And I can imagine a site where a content editor is working with the site every day, and when that notification pops up, even though the content editor doesn't have permission to update the modules. It might be that person's responsibility to notify the people who can. So I don't like tying it to the existing permission. I think we should have the flexibility to decide who does or does not see the notifications. And of those two options, I would prefer adding a new permission.
I think it's a bit of I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Like, I don't think there's one perfect answer here, because on one hand, I totally agree with what you're saying. And there is a real risk that you have a site with a bunch of editors and only one admin account. And the person who has the admin account rarely logs in, so nobody knows about the updates for like months, unless there's, they get email notifications. On the other hand, if you are a big organization with a lot of sites and thousands of editors, if all of a sudden thousands of editors get one message popping up saying there's updates, I would not want to be on that help service desk the day those incidents start coming in all at once. So I really don't know what the best approach here is. But I can see both sides of the argument.
Well, in your second use case, if we have separate permissions, then you can assign permissions so that your thousands of content editors don't see those warnings.
Right. And then how, so I guess the question then is like, yeah, I'm just thinking now, okay, so if I guess, is there value in having this, what would be the value then in having it separate from the administer software updates? Because I could imagine someone configuring permissions on a site, if they give the administrator role administer software updates, sorry, let me flip that around. If they don't give the content editor role, say administer software updates, they're equally as unlikely to give them the permission that allows them to view the update notifications.
That's their decision. So as you say, if you have thousands of content editors, and you don't want to freak them out, then you don't give them the dedicated permission that lets you see the warning messages.
Right.
Maybe we should freak them out.
If you're working for an organization that, if you have a big active site, then you should have someone who's in charge of that, and that person should be freaked out. We don't need to freak out all of our content editors with the warning message. So again, I guess we have three competing issues. One is add a new permission to see the warning messages. A second is to use the existing permission, which has the advantage that the only people who see the message are those who can do something about it. It's automatically actionable. And the third option is to introduce settings. And my preference is to go with, I think, the oldest issue, which is to add a new permission, whether or not you can see. It has the disadvantage, of course, that we have too many permissions already. But we've made progress on that.
Was
So it
that
has
a shameless plug there for your issue, Benji?
It was very shameless, yes. But it's adding one more permission to the slew of permissions that Drupal has. But it gives flexibility that, a site with only 2 or 3 content editors who are the only ones who see it regularly can have the option of letting them see the warning messages and notifying the people who can do something about it. And it gives the option of the bigger, busier site of not showing the messages to their content editors. So I feel that the new permission is the best solution. I haven't heard anyone say anything in favor of the on-off option. Do we have consensus here, or are we still scratching our heads?
I think I'd also vote for a new permission.
If I
Okay.
could posit a sort of another thought, do we currently have a permission similar to this for controlling the email notifications that a site sends out, which are arguably just equally as visually noisy because I get lots of them and I ignore them. But I have a feeling actually that's just one email address. So I'm wondering if we could, to make this, I'm just thinking of ways that if we do introduce a new permission, we could make it tie it into that system in some way where, and this would of course be a separate issue, but we make it so that, you know, instead of there just being one email address that gets notified about the, yeah, about update notifications, if there's a way to be, you know, if it's even a good idea to have it so when people get this permission, those people get an email, or if that's just maybe that's not a good idea actually. Maybe it's better to just have it as a configurable email address as I think about it.
All right, I guess I haven't updated my my local copy of the site. So let's see, where is the configuration for the update module?
I think, you know what, I think it's under site settings. I think it's where you can actually, I think it's just an email address field where you configure
So it's just
what email address.
Basic site settings.
Yeah, I think it might be in there. Well, maybe not. Oh, is it a tab on the modules extend page? That's the other place it might be.
I seem to have broken that.
Oh dear.
I wonder what patch I've got applied here that's doing that. Oh, this is often a terrible idea, but I'm going to see if I can fix my local copy of the site. This never works. Let me at least clear caches. See if that helps. Oh, that worked. So we want the update manager and configure. There we go. You can say how often you check for updates, whether to look at uninstalled modules or themes. This is where you enter the email address. So that answers your question.
Yeah, so I guess there's, you know what, and second thought, I wouldn't want to change it to be like on a user basis. So this is probably fine. Yeah. This was all a tangent to see if I could find another another use for what this new permission could also do, but maybe it's just to see those notifications.
Okay, and Offer has given us a Gitpod site. You can log in. The link is in the Zoom chat. I don't think there's any value in reading the URL into the recording since the site is temporary. admin, and which patch is this applied offer?
The one from the fork, the issue fork from that issue that you displayed.
So this is the one that adds a new permission.
Yeah, let me find the specific page. It's the one from show update notification only with permission administer software update.
Okay, so this is not adding a new permission. So to test this, I would have to create a user who doesn't have all permissions, and then I'd have to install an outdated module. So I think if someone else wants to play with that, go ahead, but I'm going to go back to the site I have installed. So, and any other opinions on this? And we're getting close to the end of the hour, so we really should wrap this up. So I think, Antonia, you said you agreed with me. Aaron, what's your current position?
I agree that we could close the issue about adding a configuration for it. I don't think that's a great idea. I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm kind of on the fence still as to which one is better. So I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Huh. I haven't convinced you. Okay.
I mean, I think it's I can see value in it being, in having one unified permission, because there may be a situation where you kind of, I was also thinking, well, if we have a permission, you have the administer software updates and you turn that on, but you completely forget about this other permission for showing the messages. So I'm just wondering if there's a way, if we add that permission, we probably want to make sure that it's not something you're going to easily miss if you're configuring the software update permission, that you also, we find the best way to make it so that you don't also miss configuring that permission.
Okay, well, I think we have to sort of admit that we don't have a final decision, but we can still comment on the issues and update them. And I think we do have consensus on closing the issue that makes it an option. So we can do that. Okay, and the board just left us. And we're almost at the hour, so let's end it there. My terrible project at work is finishing up for good or ill today, so I will have time over the next couple of days to catch up on the recordings, and I can also comment on the issues we talked about today. So
Thank you,
Thanks,
Benji.
thank you all for coming, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, bye.